back on the tools. Good boys. In this video, I'm going to show you how we made this conservatory nice and safe and secure again. Can it be done? Of course it can. I'm going to show you what to look out for when measuring and fitting a French door like this in a conservatory.
There's a bit of a strange story behind this job as well, but I'll explain that later on.
But first, we need to take the old ones out without damaging the rest of the frames and the roof. Watch out, Brooklyn. Wee, there you go. Before removing the doors, you need to make sure that the roof is well supported. As you can see, there's a post at each end sat on the dwarf wall and carrying the weight of the ring beam above. For belts and braces, if you're not sure, I always put an acro prop underneath the ridge on the inside to carry the weight of the roof. But we're pretty confident it isn't going anywhere, so I'm having a quick brew while Alan cracks on. Lovely jubbly. Breaking up the frame into sections is always the easiest way. Look at these hinges. Little tug and they're off. Nice and easy. Look at this, little ping. Oh, look at that big lad. I might look strong in this, but honestly these hinges are hanging on for dear life. So it's not me, it's the hinges. Next job, crack your welds in the corners of the frame. My go-to tool for this is a bolster chisel and a lump hammer. Look how easy that is. Cool on, boys. Once you've cracked them off, the frame all goes loose. We're having a quick look round, make sure everything's alright. But yeah, that's it. Once them welds are cracked, it all starts coming out. No worries. You can see the steel post there. That's what's holding the roof up at each end, which is connected to all the other window frames. We're just taking it easy at this stage now. We don't want to disturb anything. We just want to take that top out, take the head of the frame out. Once that last weld's cracked, it should all just come down nice and bonny. Sometimes the frames will be screwed from above. This is when the ring beam is an L shape, where the gutter sits on top of the ring beam. This means you'd have to take the guttering off to get to the screws so you can unscrew the head of the frame. This one, we got lucky, it's a box section above that frame there. So it was screwed from underneath, we just unscrewed them and it came down dead straight forward. So just the sill now, cut the sill off and then we can get the new doors in. Bobby Dazzler. So not only do you need to get your new sill level, but you also need to make sure that the old frames, the old window frames that your door's screwing up to, is level as well. And as you can see, the windows aren't level, they're a bit out. And this is at both ends of the conservatory. So how do we conquer that? Well, when you're measuring for your doors, you need to allow a bit of clearance. You need to allow a standard 10mm. Now, with a conservatory like this, you haven't got that luxury of a 10mm. So what you've got to do is you've got to measure to the longest point and then take the ribs off the sides. The old frames are overhanging that dwarf wall. So that's why we're having to cut the ribs back. So then the frames go nice and snug up to the old window frames, but we've still got enough clearance to get them level. I hope that makes sense and I've explained myself properly. I probably haven't, but yeah, you might see when we get the doors in, it might make more sense.
If you look closely now, as we're putting the frame up against the post and the brickwork, you can see that we've took the ribs off, up to the post, left the ribs on against the brick. Then we've still got a bit of clearance up that post to get it level, and then we can crack on with the rest of the frames. While we're doing that, I'll tell you about this strange story on this job. When we were grafting away, an old couple turned up and asked where the customer was. I said, he's taking dog out for a walk, mate. He said, well, we're meant to be going out for some dinner together. I went, all right. I said, I don't know out about it, matey. I says, who are you, by the way? He said, I'm his brother. And I thought to myself, brother? I mean, I'm not being funny on the guy, but there was a massive age gap between him and the customer. He couldn't have been his brother. But I thought to myself, it's an elderly couple, no harm done. If you want to park your bum in the conservatory and wait until he gets back, then yeah, crack on. So they sat there for a couple of minutes, but as soon as we started drilling and screwing, it was way too loud for him, so they shot off into the living room. I didn't think anything of it. Customer came back, and I said, hey mate, I said, your brother's in the living room. And he just laughed and went in house. Anyway, several minutes passed, and then the customer came back out to us and says, whose is this coat on my couch? I said, I don't know, matey. I said, we've not been in your living room. And then I looked through, and the couple were nowhere to be seen. I thought, what's going on here? Where are they? You know what I mean? I thought, have I dropped an absolute clanger here and just let some strangers come into my customer's house? Then the customer heard a bit of banging about upstairs, so he went up to find out. Luckily for me, it was his mother-in-law and a fella. I don't have a clue what they were doing upstairs for all that time. I'm not saying they're doing anything untoward, all I'm saying is they was upstairs for quite a long time. And I don't think my customer had a clue that they were coming, so he wasn't best chuffed to find out his mother-in-law and a fella were just rooting around the house, like nobody owned the place. It still does me head into this day though why he said it was his brother. It really has blagged my head that. He must have been pulling my leg. But yeah, I think I've learnt my lesson on this one. But as you can see, we've cracked on and the doors are now safe and secure. And more importantly, mother-in-law proof. Good boys.